Reform UK's historic by-election triumph, the political earthquake that has Westminster trembling. If you haven't already subscribed to UK Connors, now is the moment. British politics is moving faster than ever, and you need to be in the room where it happens. Hit that subscribe button because what we're witnessing right now will shape the next decade of this country. 65.3%. Let that number settle in your mind for a moment. In the Skelton East ward for Redcar and Cleveland Council, Reform UK didn't just win a by-election. They obliterated the competition with a victory so emphatic it sent shockwaves through every political headquarters in Westminster. Labour, the party currently governing this nation, limped in second with a rather embarrassing 19.2%. The Conservatives, who previously held the seat, were nowhere to be seen. This wasn't merely a victory. This was a political statement written in bold, underlined, and highlighted for anyone still pretending British politics operates by the old rulebook. Nigel Farage, never one for false modesty, is celebrating what can only be described as Reform UK's most decisive electoral triumph to date. The party has set a new benchmark, eclipsing their previous record of 65.1% from the Thornley and Wheatley Hill ward in County Durham during the 2025 local elections. Two historic wins in rapid succession. Coincidence? Momentum? Or something far more significant brewing beneath the surface of British political discourse? The timing couldn't be more delicious. Just as the Conservative Party gathered for their conference, desperate to project unity and purpose under Kemi Badenoch's leadership, Reform UK delivered a masterclass in political timing. 20 councillors defected from the Tories to Farage's party the day before Badenoch's big speech. 20. Not one or two disgruntled backbenchers, but 20 elected representatives who looked at the Conservative Party and decided their future lay elsewhere. The optics alone are devastating. While Bad Enoch stood at the podium promising to abolish stamp duty and cut student numbers to fund apprenticeships, the political ground was literally shifting beneath her feet. Now, let's talk about those national polling figures because they tell a story that should concern anyone who believes they understand British politics. YouGov's latest survey shows Reform UK commanding 27% of voter intention. Labour, the party actually running the country, trails at 20%. The Conservatives and Liberal Democrats are tied at 17% each. Read those numbers again. The governing party is 7 points behind an insurgent movement that didn't even exist in its current form a few years ago. This isn't just remarkable. It's unprecedented in modern British political history. 27% gives Reform UK a commanding lead, though seasoned observers will correctly note that the margins between parties remain close enough to make definitive predictions foolish. The next general election may not arrive until 2029, an eternity in political terms. Governments can recover. Opposition parties can implode. Economic circumstances can shift dramatically. But right now, at this precise moment, Reform UK sits atop British polling with a legitimacy that no amount of establishment dismissiveness can erase. Kemi Badenoch delivered what Tory supporters described as a barnstorming conference speech, one designed to remind wavering Conservatives why they originally backed the party. Abolishing stamp duty carries obvious appeal to property-owning Middle England, the demographic bedrock of Conservative electoral success for generations. Cutting student numbers while doubling the apprenticeship budget speaks directly to concerns about degree inflation and the perceived devaluation of traditional skilled trades. These are serious policy proposals aimed at serious constituencies. Yet the applause inside the conference hall couldn't drown out the sound of footsteps leaving the building. The feared major defection that Westminster gossips whispered about ahead of Badenoch's speech didn't materialize. That's something. A slim victory, perhaps, but a victory nonetheless for a party desperately trying to stem the bleeding. Bad Enoch went on the offensive, attacking Labour, Reform UK, Jeremy Corbyn, and the Liberal Democrats with equal vigour. She accused them all of shaking the same magic money tree, a neat rhetorical device that attempts to paint her opponents as fiscally irresponsible fantasists while positioning the Conservatives as the adults in the room. She dismissed Reform UK as promising free beer tomorrow, a cutting line that plays well with traditional Tories who view Farage's party as populist opportunists rather than serious governors. But here's where political rhetoric meets electoral reality. You can call Reform UK whatever you like. You can question their policies, mock their promises, and dismiss their supporters. 65.3% doesn't care about your opinion. 19.2% for Labour in a seat they desperately needed to defend doesn't suggest a party with its finger on the pulse of working-class concerns. The Conservatives finishing so poorly they barely merit mention in the coverage tells you everything about their current predicament. Bad Enoch reserved her harshest attacks for Labour, pledging to reverse a swathe of policies introduced by Keir Starmer's government. This is standard opposition behaviour, the kind of red meat rhetoric that conference audiences devour. But political opposition requires more than promises to undo the other side's work. It requires a compelling alternative vision, one that speaks to voters where they actually are rather than where political strategists wish they were. The Conservative Party is discovering, rather painfully, that their traditional coalition has fractured. Some have drifted to Labour, others have abandoned politics entirely, and a significant portion, one growing larger with each passing month, has found a new home with Reform UK. The geographic significance of Reform's victory deserves attention. Skelton East, Redcar, and Cleveland, County Durham. These aren't leafy home county constituencies where political fashions change with the seasons. These are working-class areas, historically Labour strongholds, places where economic anxiety and cultural concerns intersect in ways that make voters deeply sceptical of Westminster's capacity to address their lives. Reform UK's message resonates here not because voters are being duped or manipulated, but because the party is speaking to concerns that establishment parties have either ignored or addressed with insufficient urgency. Immigration, sovereignty, economic opportunity, national identity. These topics dominate kitchen table conversations across Britain, yet Westminster often treats them as third-rail issues, too dangerous to address honestly for fear of being labelled extreme. Reform UK has no such qualms. Whether you agree with their positions or not, they've identified a massive constituency of voters who feel unrepresented by the traditional party system. 65.3% Labour's they're doing something particularly acute. They spent years positioning themselves as a party of working people, yet working people in places like Skelton East are voting Reform by overwhelming margins. So Keir Starmer's government faces the unenviable task of governing during economically challenging times while hemorrhaging support to a party that promises simple solutions to complex problems. That's an uncharitable framing, of course. Reform would argue they are offering honest solutions that establishment parties lack the courage to implement. The truth likely sits somewhere between these positions, but electoral politics doesn't reward nuance. It rewards parties that make voters feel heard and valued. The Conservative Party's crisis runs deeper than poor polling or council defections. They're experiencing an existential identity crisis. What does it mean to be conservative in 2025 Britain? Is it about low taxes and small government, social conservatism and traditional values, economic competence and fiscal responsibility, national sovereignty and controlled immigration? For decades, the party managed to hold together these sometimes contradictory impulses under one large tent. That tent is collapsing. Reform UK is siphoning off the voters most concerned with immigration and national identity. Labour is attracting those prioritising public services and economic security. The Liberal Democrats are picking up socially liberal, fiscally moderate suburbanites. What's left for the Conservatives? Bad Enoch clearly understands the challenge. Her conference speech attempted to thread an impossible needle, appealing to reform-curious voters without alienating the party's remaining moderates, promising radical change while maintaining credibility as potential governors. It's a nearly impossible task, one made harder by every defection, every disastrous by-election result, every poll showing the party in third place. The Conservative Party has been Britain's most successful political organisation for over a century. Success, however, is not a permanent condition. Ask the Liberal Party, once a governing force, now a shadow of its former self. The next general election remains years away, assuming this parliament runs its full term. Plenty can change. Economic growth could return. Labour could stumble badly. The Conservatives could find a message that resonates. Reform UK could implode under the weight of its own contradictions. But right now, today, the political landscape looks fundamentally different from anything Britain has experienced in modern times. Three-party politics is challenging enough. Four-party politics, with no single party commanding majority support, creates the conditions for extended instability and unpredictable outcomes. Reform UK's 65.3% in Skelton East isn't just a number. It's a warning shot across the bow of every established political party in Britain. Voters are willing to abandon tribal loyalties when they feel those loyalties are no longer reciprocated. They are willing to back parties that establishment commentators dismiss as fringe or extreme when those parties speak to their concerns with conviction and clarity. The old rules, the old assumptions, the old certainties, all of them are dissolving before our eyes. Nigel Farage has spent a political career as the ultimate outsider, the disruptor who forced conversations establishment politicians desperately wanted to avoid. Brexit was his crowning achievement, the moment when his outsider status translated into tangible political change. But Brexit is done, for better or worse. The question now is whether Reform UK can sustain momentum, build organisational capacity, and translate polling support into parliamentary seats under Britain's first-past-the-post electoral system. By-elections and local councils are one thing. General elections are quite another. Reform UK's challenge is proving they are not simply a protest vehicle but a serious party of government. The answer to that question will define British politics for the next decade. If Reform UK continues growing, if they win parliamentary seats in meaningful numbers, if they force a hung parliament or even emerge as the largest party, British politics will have undergone a transformation as significant as anything witnessed in the past century. If they plateau, if their support proves soft, if organisational weaknesses undermine electoral potential, then the Conservatives and Labour will breathe enormous sighs of relief and return to their familiar two-party dominance. Right now, nobody knows which outcome awaits. That uncertainty, that sense of genuine political flux, is precisely what makes this moment so compelling. Westminster insiders love to dismiss insurgent parties, to explain why they'll never break through, why the system will ultimately contain them. They said the same about UKIP before Brexit. They said the same about the SNP before they swept Scotland. Establishment wisdom has a poor track record of predicting seismic political shifts. 65.3% in Skelton East won't change government tomorrow, but is another data point in a trend that should terrify anyone invested in the status quo. So where does this leave us? Labour governs, but without enthusiasm or commanding support. The Conservatives languish in third, trying desperately to find a message that resonates. The Liberal Democrats hover, hoping to benefit from other parties' misfortunes. And Reform UK sits atop the polls, winning by-elections with unprecedented margins, building momentum that feels increasingly difficult to stop. The next general election is years away, but the campaign has already begun. Every poll, every by-election, every defection shift the landscape incrementally. Politics is moving faster than ever, and standing still means falling behind. This is UK Corners, where we cut through the noise and bring you British politics without the filter. If this analysis gave you something to think about, subscribe now because this story is only beginning, and you'll want to be here for every twist and turn. The old order is crumbling. What comes next will define Britain for a generation.